Morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. So, what have I got for you lovely lot today? Well, I've had a request and this is from Mira, who asked if I'd do a lily pond, and I thought to myself, I don't think I've ever done a lily pond, so we always need to challenge ourselves. So we're going to be having a go at painting this lovely little lily pond in watercolour. So, come and join me and we'll paint this step by step together. So here is the reference picture which this tutorial is loosely based on. Now I believe it's created by AI, which is quite incredible really, but we won't touch on that controversial subject. Okay, so for today's materials, my paper is some Arches cold press finish, £300, super thick so won't need stretching. It's 100% cotton, but of course any decent watercolour paper will do. And for my colours, I'm using some magenta, but of course any bright pink will do, like some quinacridone rose or opera rose. Then I'm using cobalt blue, phthalo blue, cadmium orange, cadmium yellow, sap green, a little touch of phthalo green, we could use viridian, and some Payne's grey. For my brushes, I'm using a large Harkay, and for my range, a number 12 and a number 6 round. Oh dear, and my 3/4 inch flat brush, which I forgot to show. Here's the pencil sketch, which I've changed quite a bit from the original picture, and if you need the traceables, then as always it's free to download from my website, link in the description below. Okay, so here's the tricky decision that we need to make. How am I going to paint in the background water but leave the white paper for the water lilies? Now I could paint around them, but that's going to make it difficult to get those big broad wet and wet brush strokes. So as much as I try to avoid masking fluid, I think it's the easiest way. And there's quite a bit of masking to do, so I won't bore you with it. There we go, magic. Off we go, and using my large Harkay brush, I'm completely wetting the whole sheet. Then using my flat brush, I'm using a 50-50 mix of cobalt blue and phthalo blue, keeping all my brush strokes nice and vertical, and making sure I retain that area of light in the centre there. Now this is definitely going to be a painting where it's going to be a huge advantage to use 100% cotton paper. It just stays wet that much longer, which I'm going to need with all the different colours I'm going to be dropping in. So, still using my flat brush and nice vertical strokes, I'm painting in the magenta to give the reflection from the flower heads. Just nice quick loose strokes. And here just a little touch of cadmium orange. A little bit more of the blue, but still keeping that centre area at the top unpainted. And I'm using different strengths of the cobalt blue and the phthalo blue just to create slightly different blues. If you haven't got phthalo blue, then either a Prussian blue or a cerulean blue will work. Just strengthening those flower reflections a little bit more. Now for a bit of drama, and I'm coming in with a nice strong deep Payne's grey, and you can see that the paper is still remaining nice and wet. It's important at this stage that everything remains nice and soft. So I would suggest it's a good idea to have a lot of these colours pre-mixed just so you can move along nice and quickly. And because I'm working into damp paper, the consistency of paint can be quite thick and creamy like. Now up here it's merely to suggest that perhaps we've got some little banks or some trees, but it's all very loose. And I'm dropping in little touches of the pink and some orange and even a little bit of green. And you can see how much easier it is painting this stage with the masking fluid there, because to try and paint around all those lilies would just be a total nightmare. Okay, next I just want to create a little bit of texture here in the corner, so I'm splatting in some Payne's Grey. Then I'm just going to soften slightly with a little bit of clean water spray. So next I'm going to make sure this is totally bone dry, then I'm taking a rubber eraser and slowly removing the masking fluid. And again, this being cotton paper, it shouldn't rip or tear. Next, I've penciled in some of the details that I've rubbed out. Then I'm taking my normal green mix of cadmium yellow and cobalt blue, and I'm starting to paint in all the water lilies. Now I'm still using my number 12 brush, but if you feel more confident, use a smaller brush. Now what I'm also trying to do is vary this green colour, so I'm dropping in some more yellow on this mix, and here, as we move towards the light, I'm lightening the value quite a bit. Really quite pale here, underneath that shaft of light. And here I've just simply added in more cobalt blue into my green mix just to blue up the green. And here I've used some phthalo green, or you could use some viridian, just to really make my greens have a different feel to them. And here, wet in wet, I'm tickling in a little bit of cadmium orange. Now some of these lily pads are already beginning to dry, so I'm just layering another wash on top. And hopefully what you can see is I've tried to paint in a selection of warm and cool greens. It all helps to add to the interest. Same thing here, I'm coming on top with a very watery mid-tone green to put some details on these water lily pads. Nice and transparent because you want to see the wash through the layer that you're painting. Next, with my number 6 brush, I'm taking this dark blue colour and painting some of the reflections of the lily pads in the water. Next, with my number 6 brush and some Payne's Grey, I'm painting in the thickness of the lily pads and where some of them turn up at the edge. Now, it's important not to totally outline all the front edges, but leave some gaps, or it's in danger of looking a little too contrived. And here in this sunlit area, I'm using quite a watery burnt umber, which is a colour I think I forgot to mention at the beginning. Oops, and this little lily pad I totally forgot to paint green. And it really is these dark colours which are helping to determine the shape of the lily pads. Okay, so now for the Nymphaeaceae itself. Yes, you're right, I looked that up. So for the white petals that are facing us, I'm painting the shadow in with a nice watery cobalt blue, leaving the edges unpainted in white. And also softening some of the edges with clean water. And now for the pistil, yes, I looked that up as well. I'm painting these in cadmium orange. And while it's still wet, dropping in just a little touch of magenta at its base. Now, some of these flowers which haven't opened yet, I'm painting in with the cadmium orange again, but also dropping in some of the magenta in wet. And same thing here, but just that little bit paler because we're directly under the sun. And I'm dropping in a tiny touch of Payne's Grey at its base. Now with the magenta, and again I'm leaving plenty of white unpainted areas. And here just dropping in a little darker value at the base. Now for the main flowers, and again I'm trying to leave little white gaps so we can distinguish between the individual petals. And again dropping in a darker value here while it's still wet. And obviously continuing to paint the rest of the flowers in exactly the same way. Now I have changed the colour of these outside petals just slightly by adding in just a little touch of cobalt blue. Okay, so now it's time to create a little bit of light on the water. So I'm just taking a damp brush, I'm using my number 6, and then just wiggling my brush back and forth several times and then lifting out with a nice clean tissue. And what I like about this technique is the harder you press and the more you go back and forth, the brighter the lift out will be. And if you're careful, you can even taper the ends to a nice sharp point. Next, it's definitely mixed media time. I'm taking my white Posca ink pen and just putting in these little white highlights. They really begin to bring things together, sharpening the points here of these flowers. Of course, you could always use some white gouache or acrylic paint. And then next, with my white pastel pencil, I'm just adding in a few more little highlights. What I like about using this is that you pick up some of the texture of the paper. And of course we need to reflect a little bit of light from the lily pads. Now we would also see some of the white petals being reflected in the water, so again a pastel pencil is ideal for this because it's perfect for smudging and blurring. We definitely don't want to see sharp defined edges. Right, time for more mixed media, and I'm taking my set of soft pastels. These are the chalky base ones, not the oil ones, because I've just missed out a little bit of a reflection there. So again, a nice bit of smudging with my finger. And I want to just liven up this corner a little bit, so I'm just getting some blue back in there. And again, plenty of smudging. There we go, all done, all in about just under 2 hours. I didn't even have time for my drinks break. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and you'll give it a go. And you know what I'm going to say? Make it your own. Add in more flowers, paint less flowers, whatever takes your fancy. But the important thing is you enjoy the experience. And of course, please don't forget to like. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment. I do read every single one. At the moment, I can't always reply to them all. Super busy. And of course, I look forward to seeing you all again next week for another Watercolour Wednesday. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.